Both the United Nations and the European Commission have released guidelines and have adopted resolutions dealing with AI. So we're going to cover those things to see what does that mean and how does that apply to me in academia? How does it apply to me as a teacher or as a professor? So the first one here, dealing with the United Nations. So the United Nations General Assembly together unanimously, they adopted this new resolution dealing with AI. And it breaks it down into about 3 or 4 different sections. But the main things are, one, that we're going to be applying the same human rights for people that are online as well as offline. So whatever an AI can do, it has to ensure that it's maintaining human rights for people both online and offline. So we can't have these separate things. So if the AI is doing something that could be hurting someone online, as well as offline, those things will be looked at and there'll be laws and regulations associated with that. So again, the human rights aspect, that's an important, and that's the first thing that was addressed within that UN resolution. The other big one is this idea of closing the digital divide. The resolution calls for suggesting or encouraging, let's say, more developed nations to help those nations that are still developing, still improving, to help those nations to better close the digital divide. So this includes having digital literacy, which then also includes AI literacy. So again, very important. AI literacy is, of course, the main thing that's going to affect the entire world. So this is a great resolution in that it's encouraging everyone to sort of come together in this community of practice that we're talking about, come together and help each other out so that we can develop this AI literacy. So as an academic, the more that we can do to help other nations, to help developing nations, to help any nation, by helping them with their AI literacy, the better. And that's what this AI resolution calls for as well. Another big part of this resolution on AI deals with having this resolution work as a model for other AI resolutions, especially when it comes to trying to establish peace and trying to limit the fighting that's occurring throughout the world, especially with the use of AI in military applications. So this kind of brings that out and talks about how there needs to be lots of ethical considerations associated with autonomous use of AI in different types of weapons or different types of military deployments. So this is something that's really important. Again, the ethical considerations, this falls within the fourth aspect of AI literacy, dealing with critical thinking, ethics, bias. So this is an important part as well. And then the final part of this AI resolution through the UN talks about we govern AI. We govern AI. And I want to read a section here that comes from Thomas Greenfield. So this is our representative to the United Nations from the United States. So this is what she said. She said that in dealing with we govern AI, to govern the technology rather than let it govern us. That's a pretty powerful statement. And yeah, we definitely want to make sure that we're always in charge of the AI as opposed to the AI now making all the decisions for us. So this is, again, dealing with ethics, critical thinking, and all those aspects. And it also goes on to say, so let us reaffirm that AI will be created and deployed through the lens of humanity and dignity, safety and security, human rights, and fundamental freedom. So again, powerful statements talking about developing the AI, continuing to improve the AI, but always with this lens of humanity, because that's what it's for, right? It's there to be a big assistive tool for us, not to take over. So that's a big thing. And that's important for us to understand and to push for that as we in academia work to develop these AIs and work to help people think it through properly as far as how we're going to use this AI. Now, another big thing that recently occurred here are some guidelines that came out from the European Commission. What they released are these living guidelines on the responsible use of generative AI in AI research. This is broken down into 3 main sections: what researchers should do, what research organizations should do, and then funding organizations, what they should do. The key things here are that for researchers, for, again, academia, there needs to be definitely a focus on research integrity, on using generative AI transparently, and always remembering that the people that conduct the research they're the ones that are responsible, right? They're the ones that their names go on the actual research. So they're the ones that will be held accountable. We can't turn around and say, oh, well, this was a mistake. The AI did it. Nope, it's going to be that researcher. So this is, again, highlighting that. And we always need to keep that in mind as well. Additionally, preserving privacy, confidentiality, intellectual property rights. This is important when we go through and do the research. Critical approach to using generative AI and continuously learning how to use it responsibly to gain and maintain AI literacy. Again, I want to highlight that they're using that term AI literacy. That's the important thing. In academia, we have to develop that within ourselves so that we can properly develop that within our students. And we can see it's an important aspect of research as well. And then it also talks about refraining from using generative AI tools in sensitive activities, such as peer review and evaluation. So that makes sense as well. There always needs to be that human in the loop. Now, as far as research organizations, it talks about actively monitoring how it's being developed and how the tools are being used. That's important. Integrating the guidelines, adapting them, expanding them when needed, and then deploying, it says here, deploy their own generative AI tools to ensure data protection and confidentiality. That's interesting that they put that in there as a guideline. So that would push more towards some sort of open source model where all the content is kept locally on local servers. The AI would run there. It would use that large language model. But again, it would be kept locally, so it wouldn't be going out. That would be another great way to provide protection for sensitive data. Now, of course, all universities can't do that because it costs a bit to run, but this is definitely an important point to move forward, especially as prices go down. And then finally here, where it talks about funding organizations, it says that support the responsible use of generative AI in research, use generative AI transparently, ensuring confidentiality and fairness, and then facilitate the transparent use of generative AI by applicant. This is really good in that it talks about, hey, generative AI is here and it is going to be used in research and it should be used in research, but we need to be transparent about it. So that's important. We need to be observing it. We need to ensure that the human is in the loop. So again, overall here, these guidelines are great because they're not banning the use of generative AI, but they are making some specific things, some specific statements that are important for us to remember, such as we need to develop our generative AI literacy in general, which is always important, but then again, highlighting that we are the ones that are in charge, the human is in the loop, and that we are the ones that have to take responsibility for all these things. So these are some great overall guidelines that came out from the European Commission. Again, we have our own different things going on in other parts of the world, but these are good guidelines in general that all nations should look at and think about, especially with all the different funding opportunities that come from Europe. So that's important for us to think about. But then also in other countries, like let's say the United States, we should be looking at these and saying, okay, these make sense, let's apply them as well. And along with the same lines here, the United Nations, their resolution, a lot of great things going there, all important things for us to keep in mind, as well as looking at it with that ethical lens and keeping everything that we do with AI with this overall lens of humanity, because that's what that's what it's for, at least to help us use AI as a tool. Not that the tool will use us, but that we will use it appropriately, ethically, and critically. Thank you, everyone. And remember, learning is for life. I appreciate everyone watching. Please like, subscribe, share this with all your friends so that we can continue to develop this community of practice.